Hey guys, in today's video we're going to be checking out a resin printer from Creality, and it's called the Halot-One. So this is Creality's latest offering, and it does have some new design features that I'm pretty excited to check out. So in this video we're going to unbox it, set it up, and do some prints. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Let's get started. Alright guys, so this is the new Halot-One from Creality, and I was kind of curious about what the word halot means because it's kind of a strange word in my opinion. If you add an R to that, you know what that comes out to. So I had to look it up, and what I found was that the word halot actually refers to a language, specifically Hebrew, which refers to the Old Testament. So it's literally the language in the Old Testament is what the word halot means, at least is what I found. So yeah, so you guys can see the box that the printer comes in. There's a picture here of what it looks like, the dimensions of the box in centimeters, and here on this label here it says 9 kilograms, which is also about 20 pounds. So definitely on the heavier side for this size printer. All right, so let's go ahead and open the box. So you can open it from the top or the bottom. Sometimes I find it easier to open it from the bottom because a lot of times they'll have like accessories and tools on top. So let's just do that and see how it goes here. But yeah, Creality seems like they're on a roll with resin printing lately, which is good for us because we have more options. All right, and we got pieces coming down, and sure enough we got some stuff stuck in there. So all right, so yeah, looks like we have some sides here to protect, and then we got like 2 little cardboard pieces on each end, and then this top layer here comes off, and we have all our accessories in there. And here we see the printer. So it is nicely packed in this soft white foam. Go ahead and pull it out. All right, so we can see it's all plastic wrapped and taped, so we're gonna have to flip it over here and cut this tape away. All right, so we can see the bottom, and there are 4 squishy rubber feet and some venting here, and it's all metal. So all right, now we can pull off the plastic wrap. We got the cover, which is kind of like a red tint, very nice, and there's a plastic protector around it that just peels off. All right, more plastic baggies, and this should just slide up. Okay, sure enough it does. And actually inside this foam, there's a little piece you got to uncover, and we can see our build plate in there. But yeah, this is what the build plate looks like. It's got like a sanded kind of finish, so hopefully sticks well. And we do have taper on the top to drain the resin better. Yeah, it looks pretty good, all metal. First thing I'm really noticing, and we'll go over all the details here in a little bit, but there's a really large screen, and that's actually a 6-inch touchscreen LCD. So yeah, very cool. All right, so let's see what we got here. So it looks like we got a baggie of stuff, including the manual, which is very nice looking. Creality usually makes great manuals. So here we have all the parameters, if you guys can see that maybe, and instructions on how to get started here. Should be able to figure this out pretty quick. And that's the great thing about resin printing, is that it is simpler in the way it functions, but the complications are actually in the slicing the models, and I guess also handling resin. But yeah, as far as the machine itself, it's very simple in its operation. There's only one moving part. So all right, so it looks like we got more stuff in this bag. We get a large spatula. It's not very sharpened, so it's more dull, but yeah, this is to scrape off the models off of the build plate. Make sure you don't use this on the tub itself in the printer, because that's not what it's for. Sometimes they include a plastic one that, you know, you can scrape the tub out, but yeah, they do give you this brush here to clean out the models, I guess, and maybe clean out the tub. Not my favorite thing because these things usually shed and they fall all over the place because they're kind of cheap, but in any case, I guess it's kind of nice to have one. Some filters to strain your resin. So you don't really need this when you're pouring a new bottle into the printer, but you will need this whenever you're trying to save your unused resin back into the bottle. You use this to, you know, make sure nothing goes into the bottle. We also get some Allen keys or hex wrenches, 3 pieces, and a USB thumb drive, which should have our slicer software in there and maybe some test models. All right, so let's see what else we got. Blank envelope that's sealed. Very interesting. Okay, so we have extra vat material. So this is the screen. Well, let's go ahead and pull this off. That goes here on the tub. You guys probably can see there's a screen. And these are extra pieces that whenever you wear these out, you can change them. And it's actually not too hard. There's just a bunch of bolts. And then their bracket pulls off, and then you take off the old screen, put the new one in, and then tighten it back up and trim the edges, and you're good to go. So yeah, it's really cool that they include actually 3 replacements. So you got 4 total with the one that's in there. So this should give you a long life of printing with these extra vat films. All right, well, we also get a lot more filters, 3M branded, which is interesting. And these look like they're more bigger and more heavy duty. So yeah, so these are the ones that are original, and then we got the heavy duty large ones. So well, it looks like we also get another extra film for the vat. So I'm not sure if these are extras that we have here, including the filters and the envelope of vats, as part of the Creality, or maybe the seller. But I'll have the links to the seller which this printer came from, so you most likely will get the same kind of parts. So, and here we have the power cord, and it's US type, and it's actually a decent length, so that's nice to see. All right, and that's everything for all the accessories. All right, so let's take a closer look at the printer here. I'm gonna go ahead and take the vat here, the tub, back out. And so it is all metal and appears to be aluminum, good quality. We got markings here, you guys can see, little steps of volume measurement. And then the manual tells you what each step represents. We got 2 knobs with bolts, and that's how you tighten it. And the film, which is stretched very nicely. You can play music on it, so yeah. So you guys saw me just set it down flat like that. Don't do that because you're gonna accumulate dirt on it. What just happened, because I didn't realize there's no little feet here that hold it up. So the film does touch straight to the bottom. But yeah, what I'd like to see, maybe some feet. So, you know, when you do pull it out and stand it down, when you do have resin in it, you know, you're not actually touching the film. But it's not a big deal, you know, you could just set this down on a towel or a napkin. So, all right, so let's see the printer itself a little closer. So first things first, guys, look at this humongous touchscreen display here. Very nice. And there is a protector. Let's go ahead and take it off. Yeah, that's huge. You can see my finger here and the screen, so very nice. So we do have 2 USB ports, a normal one and then a printer type. I think it's type A is what it's called. I'm going to this side, we can see we just have venting. To the other side, also just venting. And on the back, it gets a little more interesting. So we have the manufacturing label there. You guys can see that, all the information. Venting here in the middle. And what's interesting is we have the power socket here that is fused with an on and off switch in the back. So it looks like that the power supply is inside the printer instead of externally. So that's kind of interesting. On the top, we can see the main LCD screen, and you need a peel protector here also. So this is a 2K monochrome LCD panel, which is awesome, and no resin printer these days should be any different because we do have a very long life and also very fast printing speeds from about 1 to 4 seconds a layer. So going up, we have the Z-axis motor with the coupler and the lead screw going up, which is connected to this arm, and it is all aluminum metal. And then we have the knob here that tightens our bed. Let's go ahead and install that. Well, I guess that won't fit. Well, actually, we can go ahead and raise this. I'm gonna go ahead and do that. But yeah, we got a linear rail, if you guys can see that. And that's what the Z-axis rides on, linear bearings. And we got a brass bushing here for the lead screw. So yeah, our build plate will simply just slide right in here, just like that. And then we can tighten it, and that secures it. And the build volume that we have for this printer is 127 millimeters wide, 80 millimeters deep, and 160 millimeters tall. Yeah, pretty standard size for a 2K LCD screen. So on the inside there, you guys can see, but there's an optical sensor that stops it from going all the way up. The whole box frame of the Z-axis is all metal, and as you guys can see, it's all enclosed. So yeah, very strong and durable construction. Also, some touches here is we have little brackets that hold the tub in place when you put it in. And then we have a little fan here with a carbon filter that helps with the fumes. So with this Halot printer, we do have a new design of dual cooling, and also maybe a bigger deal, the precision integral light source. So the way they send the UV light to the LCD panel is a lot more even and precise here in this model, and I guess we'll see that in our prints how well it does. So, and maybe one more thing to mention is this whole printer is running on an ARM processor that's 64-bit. So yeah, I think for the next part we need to go ahead and plug in the cord, and that simply goes back here. And the switch here is where we're going to power it on. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and hit it. And it powers on. Took a little bit there to show up, but yeah, look at that animation, guys. That's interesting. All right, so yeah, you guys can see that's a very large screen, and it might be too bright. Yeah, I've darkened the camera, but it probably is still bright. But in any case, we can see here the Creality logo. It says File and Settings. So the file is going to read our USB drive on the side. And then let's go ahead and click Settings. So here we can see we have quite a few options. We got Parameter Settings, Clean Function, Z-axis Movements, System Settings, Device Binding, and Service. All right, so I brought you guys in a little closer. Maybe we can see that. So let's click on the first thing here, which is Parameter Settings. So here we can adjust what the printer does. And it looks like we have a lot more adjustment than normal here. So we got bottom exposure time set at 40 seconds, light delay, which is 4 seconds, exposure time 3 seconds, bottom lifting distance 6 millimeters, and then we got the motor speed, which is 1 millimeter a second. So it's kind of cool that you can adjust all that. Let's see if we click on it. Okay, so you just literally choose it here from the menu. So let's say if we want more exposure time, we'll add it here. So maximum exposure time is 70 seconds, and I'll probably leave it at that because that's mostly where all the issues come from. You want to, you know, stick really good to the build plate. But yeah, that's cool. All right, let's click confirm. So here we have a clean setting, which is also a good setting to check, make sure your UV rays are working. So let's click on that, and it does come on. I don't know if you guys can see, but yeah, the whole screen just is on, and this is actually used to clean the vat. Whenever you're done printing and you got a little bit left over in there, you can turn this on and it'll solidify whatever's in there. Then it's easier to peel it off and clean it. So, but also we could use this to check, make sure it works. So let's go ahead and turn that off. And I don't know if you guys can hear, but when I did turn the clean on, the fans came on. So it was pretty quiet until now. And I'll bring my microphone in. It does have a little bit of noise. It's not anything bad, but it's definitely not quiet either. So, and I would even say that maybe on the louder side for a resin printer. All right, so we got Z-axis movement. Okay, so here we have leveling and out of home, and we'll come back to this. System settings, so we can change our language. And looks like we only have 2 languages, English or Chinese looks like. Refresh, I don't want to click that. I think that just resets everything. And then we have our Wi-Fi settings here. So if you want to connect to your Wi-Fi, you can. And then you can, you know, control the printer from your phone or whatnot else. So here we have device binding, and this pulls up a QR code, and this has something to do with that Wi-Fi. So if you have the right app, you can connect your phone to the printer and then just send files to the printer from your phone. So. And here we have the service section where you can contact the company. All right, so yeah, pretty simple and intuitive menu. And obviously you'll click here once you have something in the USB port, but it does look like we already have something in there as a test file. So that's interesting. And something else that's interesting is the file names. I've never seen that before. It's a CXDLP. So that looks like it's unique to this printer. All right, so for the next part, let's go ahead and do the leveling. So this part is actually much simpler than it seems. We are gonna need our Allen wrenches, the largest one, which we're gonna have to loosen 4 bolts here on this build plate. I'll just go ahead and show you guys a little closer, but yeah, there's 4 bolts that we gotta loosen, 2 on each side. And once we do that, we can see the whole bracket just moves around. And the whole point of this, we can go ahead and set it back in, tighten it up, and you guys can see our whole build plate moves around now. So the point of this is to hold the Z-axis down, and then the build plate here will sit flat. But before you let it down on the screen, you need some kind of little buffer, like a piece of paper. So this manual is actually perfect. It's pretty thin. So I'm just gonna use it, set it in between, and then we're gonna go to settings, Z-axis movement, and click on leveling. So now we can see the Z-axis now is moving up kind of slow, and I'm guessing it's going to the sensor up there. And then once it gets there, it'll come back down. So All right, so now it's coming back down and definitely taking much longer than it should be. I feel like go a little faster. All right, so after eternity, it's finally on the bottom now, and we should start. Yeah, we did compress a little bit. It looks like it's just about perfect here, and that's where it stopped. So we still have movement in the plate, but it is sitting completely flat. So what you want to do next is put 2 fingers around the plate on both sides and tighten up the 4 bolts on the side. So we're going to start from one here, and then we're going to go to the other on the opposite side to the front, and then back to the front on here. But yeah, you definitely want to hold the plate down as you're tightening it. That way it's nice and flat. But don't push too hard down because, you know, we do have the screen down there. You just want to make sure it's flat. So once you got everything nice and flat, you can snug up these bolts, not too tight. And that's it. That should be our leveling. So our paper is still under there, and it's, you know, had some friction, but we should be able to pull it out pretty easy. You guys can see that. So, but yeah, we should have a very nice level build plate to the screen. So let's go back. Well, actually, before we do that, we do need to go up. So let's go to out of home, and that's going to raise it all the way to the top, that's where the home is. And it's going to get it out of the way so we can install our vat or the tub back on the printer. Yeah, I definitely wish that the up and down motion was faster. I don't know why it's so slow. And maybe actually, guys, let's see. Let's stop that. I'm just kind of curious. What if we go to the parameter settings and we set the motor speed to, let's say, all the way to 10, out of curiosity? Oh, it doesn't go to 10, just goes to 9. Okay, confirm it. I wonder if that actually speeds up this process here. So out of home, and sure enough, well, wow, that's too fast. Yeah, it's boogieing along like crazy now. All right, so yeah, if you want it to go faster, you can adjust that, but make sure you change that back before you start printing. Well, you know what? I'm gonna set it to 2 millimeters because 1 was just way too slow. I'll confirm that. All right. So making sure that the film is clean and your display here is clean, we can go ahead and set this back in there and tighten it back up. So yeah, as simple as that, we're pretty much ready to print. And as you can see that it's not very hard to get started. So let's talk about resin next, because this is quite important. And you know, you want to take safety precautions here because resin is a pretty dangerous thing, or corrosive, I guess, to your skin and also your breathing and particles and things like that. So it's nice that this printer does have the carbon filter, which is going to help us a lot, but you know, we're still pouring resin and messing with it and cleaning models. So be very careful with that. Now there's different kinds of resin. I've been using the normal resin that you have to dissolve in alcohol, and that's usually the best kind of resin for the best quality prints and the strongest prints. But I've decided to go ahead and go to water washable from now on, if that's possible, because it is a little bit less stinky, a lot easier to clean up because you use water instead of alcohol, and we should still be getting excellent print quality. So the one we got here is made by Elegoo, and this should be the ceramic gray. And if you buy a larger bottle like this, it's a little bit more economical. So here we can see the color of it. The 405 nanometer wavelength is what these printers use. And they also included a little brush in here, which is nice. So I'm gonna shake this up a little bit, but not violently, because if we shake this violently, we're gonna get a lot of air like inside the resin, and it's gonna be like all foamy and bubbly, and you don't wanna do that. Just kinda, you know, move it around like this if it's been sitting for a bit. Get you guys here a little better angle. But yeah, we're just gonna open it up. Now when you're just pouring resin in, you don't really need gloves or anything, but you do want to make sure that you're in a well ventilated area. Well, I'm in my garage right now, so I have a lot of air going through with windows open. And also you want to wear your gloves, but since we're just pouring, I'm not going to be touching any of the resin, but you definitely need some gloves. Well, it looks like we do have a seal here that we're gonna have to cut. But yeah, the whole point is, you know, try not to get it on your skin, and you know, including breathing any of it. All right, so now we're just gonna pour it in. And we can see the nice gray color. So let's go about halfway. Should be good for now. Make sure to always close your bottle right away. And also forgot to mention, you know, if you are buying a resin printer, you're gonna have to get your own resin. Most, or just about 99% of the time, maybe even more than that, you don't get anything with the printer itself. The good news is the price is not too bad. Like this bottle here, it depends, like fluctuates here and there, but it's about 30 to 35, and then the smaller ones are a little under 20, which is the 500 milliliters. So yeah, go ahead and plan on buying some resin. So we're using washable resin, which I'm pretty excited about, but I can tell you right now that I can still smell it. It's still stinky. It seems like maybe a little less stinky, but it's still stinky. And we're gonna put the cover on here in a second, after we start it. And you know, that's gonna really help reduce the smells, or pretty much eliminate them, I think, with this printer. And one of the reasons is because we have that carbon filter. So I did see a file on there that was already inside of the printer. So apparently you can store at least one file at a time. So we'll click on that. And I'm guessing this is some kind of test file here. So we'll just click on that and see what happens. And there we go. So here we can see the layout. So this is the side view and then the top view. It tells us how long it'll take, which is 1 hour and 39 minutes. And then we have the start button here to start the print, and also the file name, 400 layers, and each layer is 50 which is 0.05, I guess, millimeters, something like that. So pretty standard for resin printing. So let's click start here and see what happens. And there we go. So our z-axis is going down. It looks like it's using our 2 millimeters a second, which is a lot more reasonable than 1. All right, so now we're going into the resin. And that looks good right there. So yeah, it looks like it started and it's doing its first layer. So it doesn't appear that we can adjust anything while it's printing. Can we? No. Okay, we can pause it. Let's see if we click on the time. No, nothing happens. Okay, so unfortunately you can't adjust on the fly. Well, I guess that's not great, but you know, technically if you pre-adjust everything, you don't really need to do that. But it would have been nice to adjust the exposure times while it's printing, or even maybe speeds, things like that. So in any case, looks like we've started and we're good to go. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the cover on, and you definitely wanna use this cover, guys. Not only it's going to eliminate the smells, but it's also protecting the resin from the UV light that comes in. And this is why it's, you know, tinted in this color, is to block UV light. So the first layers are going to be longer. And the reason longer exposure is better for the first layers is because it's going to stick to the build plate, you know, a lot better. Yeah, hopefully we're stuck onto the plate and everything is good, but we'll check up on it here in a second. We'll let it print. And I do want to try a feature that I feel like is very important, and hopefully this printer will have it. All right, so we printed 98 layers now out of 400, so we're 1/3 of the way. What I want to check is the pause feature. And the reason that's important is, let's say you just start a print and you want to check, make sure it's stuck to the build plate after about, you know, 20, 30 layers. So let's go ahead and remove the cover. So I'm gonna go ahead and click pause and see what happens. All right, and it doesn't do anything, and that's very unfortunate, it looks like. So yeah, that's not good. I definitely hope that they're going to change that with a software update for this printer, because it could be frustrating, you know, especially if you're having issues with using a new resin or just trying things out, and let's say they're not sticking. You're not going to be able to know until it's past this point where you can see through. Unfortunately, this printer doesn't have it. It just literally pauses it right at where it's at. So, but technically, if you're not having issues with sticking, you would never need to pause it anyways. But yeah, I just wanted to do that test because I feel like it is quite important, or it's a great feature to have. So, all right, well, let's continue printing here. We are a quarter there, and we got about 300 more layers to go. So we'll see what comes out. All right, so our first print is done. Let's go ahead and take the cover off. And we can see that looks like everything's stuck, so that's great. Now this is part of resin printing where it gets a little tricky because you need to clean all this up. So if this was regular resin, we'd have to use alcohol to post-process it. But because this is water washable resin, we can use just plain old water. Now if you're gonna do resin printing, you probably wanna go ahead and invest in a wash and cure station. And I have one here from Creality, which is called the UW01. And these things are not too expensive, and they're definitely worthwhile the investment. And it is able to do the washing and curing, which we have UV lights here. So let's go ahead and set this bucket of water that it comes with, and there's a propeller underneath that spins it. And it also comes with like this little basket. And so one of the great things is that we don't even need to touch the resin in this process because we have this wash and cure. And so what we can do, I'm gonna go ahead and set this basket down in there, is we can go ahead and take this off. I'm gonna release it. And I'm literally just gonna go straight into the water. And just like that. I'm gonna set it down in there. So if you don't have a machine like this, you would simply just, you know, get a bucket of some sort and put water in it if you use the washable and wash it like that, or obviously alcohol. So, but then again, make sure, you know, you wear your gloves and all your protective gear that you need with good ventilated area. So we do need to put the cover on or it won't turn on or start. So it's on wash, on quick. Let's go to 5 minutes, click play, and there you go. So it's just gonna twirl the water magnetically through a propeller and gonna really wash it, and you can see it kind of clouds up there. Maybe we can see a little better like this. Anyways, you guys can see how cloudy that is, so it's washing off all the resin. And if you guys notice, we're also washing our build plate from the printer, which is nice. So if you're, done with printing, that'd be a great way to wash everything. And obviously you can rinse your tub in here also, and it makes it quite easy and painless. And that's the main thing about resin printing that's not so fun, is this post-processing / cleaning up everything. So all right, so we're gonna let that run through, and then once it's done, we're gonna pull it out and check it out. Well, let's go ahead and close this printer up because I do smell it. I'll go back to the main menu there. So we're almost done. And there we go. All right, so it looks like it washed it up pretty good. It actually turned more clear, what's interesting. So yeah, it looks like it does dissolve in water. Because if we look here on the top of the build plate where it was heavy, it's still on there. So it is dissolving it, but not as good. And by the way, guys, I did put on a glove on one of the hands so I can hold the parts and stuff. So maybe we'll break these loose and then throw them individually back in the basket and run it some more. I guess water washables probably need a lot more time in the water. So I grabbed another spatula that's actually sharper. We'll see if we can get these off. I got a little towel here we can work on. But yeah, to mention the print, we can see that it's printed on each corner and then one in the middle as a test file. And I guess this shows how how level the build plate is between each corner, and also that you can print something very large and it all will stick. So okay, so it's not too bad. That popped off pretty easy. Okay, so far so good. All right, well, that's good. Now we got to make sure our build plate is nice and clean. I'll go ahead and just wipe it off, and we can go ahead and put it back. Tighten it back up, and we're ready to print our next print. So let's go ahead and throw all these little parts here back into the water. And we're gonna run it for a bit longer, let's say 10 minutes more, and see if we can clean them up a little better. So while they're washing, and after they wash, we'll cure them also. Let's go ahead and put the cover back on so we can minimize the smell. And I'm kind of curious if they have anything here on the thumb drive, maybe some other files that we can try out. Let's go ahead and click on file, and sure enough, there is something there, and it looks like this one here because that one we printed, but it appears to be exactly the same thing, except this one says Z160. Let's just click on it and see what it is, if it gives us a preview or not. I guess we gotta click on it twice. Okay, it's copying the file. All right, so it's the same thing, except the center of it is very long. You guys can see that. I don't think we should be probably printing that. It doesn't make any sense. It'll be practically the same print with a very tall center, which will take probably a pretty long while. So instead of printing that, let's go ahead and head to the computer, and we'll probably have to install the Creality software because the file names there look very specific to this printer. All right, so here we are at the computer, and I got the thumb drive plugged in, and this is what we see. It says disk image. So let's open it up. So we got 4 files here. That one slice file that we saw with the tall center. We got the manual, looks like PDF. Then we got the slicer install, and also a video of how to get started real quick. So that could be useful if you want to check that out. Here's one of the issues that I noticed right away is the slicer is only available for Windows, because we can see it says here .exe, and it's called the Halot-Box. So that's not going to work for us because we're using a Mac, and I don't really have a Windows computer that I could use. So thanks to the internet, I went around searching, and I found this, which is a program called UV Tools, and this is a link here that you can download at GitHub. And here we can see for the different operating systems, and what I did is download for the OS X, which is for Mac. And so what this tool should be able to help us do is convert our files from Chitubox, and this is what the icon looks like for the UV tools. So let's go ahead and open that up, double click it. So yeah, it just simply installs on the Mac like anything else. You do have to give it permission since it's a third party. And yeah, this is what we see. It looks a little confusing here, but it's not that hard, at least to convert. And you can do more things with this tool. I haven't really looked into it too much, but you can fix issues and things like that, so with your models. But before we get to that, let's go to Chitubox. We're gonna open it up. And for resin printing, I usually use Chitubox because it's pretty simple and seems to work the best, at least for me. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to settings, and we're gonna set up a default machine here. So under default, we're just going to create a default profile, and you can name it whatever you want, obviously. So I guess we can go ahead and call it Halot. All right, so here's our resolution, 1620 by 2560. The locked ratio in millimeters would be 80 by 127 by 160 tall. And I got the mirror set to normal. We don't have to do anything here on the resin. And the print parameters, we can obviously adjust our layer height. Then bottom layers, I got at 8. Exposure time, 3 seconds. And bottom exposure is 50. So this might be a little much, but since I'm gonna use washable resin, I wanna make sure it sticks to the plate. And the rest I left the way it is, so it should be fine. G-code didn't mess anything around with here. Advanced here, you could add anti-aliasing, which will help. I guess we can turn that on. And I guess we'll turn image blur, just to get a smoother surface maybe. But anyway, you can mess around with this. So yeah, as simple as that, we're pretty much done here. So now we're set up to go, or to slice, should I say. So let's grab a rook and throw it in here. And I don't think I want to print it that big. So we're gonna go into scale. And by the way, this is where all your controls are, main controls. Then you got some stuff up here, and then you got supports over here. And this is the file that we're working with right now. So if you want to learn more about Chitubox, you can check out some tutorials out there. But yeah, we're gonna try to go through this a little quicker here. So let's scale it down to 50%. Yeah, that's good. That should give us a pretty good idea of kind of quality we can get out of this printer. So yeah, simple as that. If we're, good to go, what we're gonna do is click on slice here. And here it tells us how long it's gonna take and how much resin it's gonna consume, and all of our parameters down here, and you can scroll through the layers. So now what we need to do is save the file since we're done slicing it. That's the name of it, where it's going, desktop. And here we can see the kind of file we'll be outputting. So we'll do the Chitubox slicer file, the first one, which is the .ctb, and we'll save it to the desktop. And here it is, ready to go. So now that we got that file, we can minimize Chitubox. And now we're just gonna simply take this file and we're just gonna drag it onto the UV tools. So when we drag it on there, we can see that. Kind of hard to zoom this thing out. Yeah, we can see the file here and the layers, and we can go through the layers here if we want also. And you can, mess around with the layers here and actually repair them. And we have a lot of parameters here on the side and other things here. And on the very bottom, we can see all of our information about the print. So all we want to do at this point is just export it. So we're going to click on file and then convert to, and you guys can see we can convert from the CTB file to any of these different files here, or machines, I guess. If we scroll all the way down here closer to the bottom, we can see it says Creality CXDLP. And this is exactly what the Halot-One printer takes. So we're going to click on that, and then it's going to ask us where we want to save it, to the desktop, and we'll click save, and it saves it. And here's our file that we can now use to print. All we're gonna do is drag it into our thumb drive, just like that. And it's gonna upload it, and now we can go to the printer and start printing it. So yeah, guys, if you can't install the Creality slicer, and I've also heard that it's not very good either, so this seems to be a very good workaround for that, at least for now, and it's quite simple and everything's free. Yeah, I'll try to leave the links in the description for the UV tools download. And yeah, you should probably know about Chitubox if you do resin printing. Probably the best software out there. So all right, so we started our rook on the printer. Hopefully that's gonna turn out good. Let's go ahead and see if these got washed up or not. So I got them in this towel here. So it seems like pretty good overall. All the cubes intact and looking pretty good. So I think we can go ahead and cure them. Let's remove the water, and we'll grab the disc and put our models on it. So they are still a little sticky. Cover it up, and we'll switch to cure. 2 minutes probably is not enough. Let's just go for 5 minutes. We'll push play and it'll start curing. Well, I guess one thing we forgot to change, let's pause it for a second, is the speed here. We'll go to slow. There we go. Yeah, that's much better. So we're printing over there and we're curing over here. Yeah, this is basically the extent of resin printing. So it could be pretty fun if you have all the right tools. And I feel like, a wash and cure like this or anything similar would be a great help with the processing and just the enjoyment of resin printing. All right, so this is done. And I ran it twice for 5 minutes, so 10 minutes, just to make sure it's nice and cured. So let's take one of these blocks and the center here and take a closer look. So yeah, I wouldn't say, this is anything amazing. And we do have I don't know if you guys can see on camera, but yeah, probably. We got some kind of weird haze. It's almost like maybe it didn't wash off as good. So since it's water washable, I think it requires a little bit more washing than if you would have just had alcohol. But yeah, as far as detail is concerned, let's see if we can get a little closer here. Yeah, it looks pretty good. We can see all those numbers there, whatever they mean. There's more numbers on the sides there. I wouldn't say this turned out great, especially the post-processing. And the cube itself also looks pretty good, but yeah, you can see that hazing kind of. And also there is a little bit of an elephant foot. You can see that maybe. So yeah, but you know, depending on how you slice it, you should probably have a raft anyway. And if you have supports, obviously that's not an issue at all. But yeah, it does look like a solid piece and it does have some weight to it. This is the test prints and I guess they turned out fine. And mostly it showed that everything works. So let's hope with this conversion here that we did on the files that we're gonna get a good result, and we'll find out once it is finished. All right, so we got the Rook printed and we'll take a closer look at it here in a second. I wanna go ahead and start another print off of the USB drive here. So we'll plug it in. And the cool part about this printer, so we click on File, you can see we have sliced quite a few things here. So let's go with the Eiffel Tower. You can see that it's copying the file onto the printer. So once it copies it, you don't need the thumb drive anymore. So we can go ahead and unplug it. And so it has memory inside of the file. And so you don't have to have the USB thumb drive plugged in, which I thought was pretty awesome. But yeah, the only real issue with converting it, as you guys can see, the preview here is just kind of two strange looking pictures. So there's not that really nice little layer look, but that's okay. It seems to be working great. So we'll click on Start. And there it goes. But let's go ahead and take a closer look at the Rook. And you guys can hopefully see pretty well here. It looks really nice. The detail is definitely all there. And one thing I did different with this thing is I did not cure it. Meaning I didn't use the curing machine to cure it. I only washed it in water and that's it. And I'm realizing for this washable resin, this is the best way, is to just let it naturally cure. So you guys can see all the details in the walls. Very nice detail everywhere. Another thing I realized is that this was a dual color print, which has the helix inside, and I forgot to put that in, so I just did the outer shell. But yeah, if we look at the Sigma letters, it's very nice and detailed. Now there's a little bit of like some peeling going on maybe, or maybe those are little supports between the letters or something, but yeah, that's the only thing. And you can kind of see in these slots on the side, there's like a little layer that seems to be like peeling off. So yeah, that might be, you know, need some more dialing in the resin. But as far as the quality, you guys can see it's an excellent print and it seems to have all the detail. I did ruin the bottom a bit trying to get it off. I think I have it too close, which I have this little elephant foot here, so I might have to readjust it and go a little bit higher. But yeah, very happy with this first result, and we will have to print all of our models converted. Hopefully we'll see some good results. So I'm gonna go ahead and print out a few more things and we'll take a closer look at them. All right, so now that we printed all the models we want, let's go ahead and do the cleanup process. So it's actually not that difficult. So let's go ahead and clean the main build plate. We'll just throw it in the water here. And actually, we probably don't even have to run this thing. We can just kind of move it in there because it's got a very thin layer and it's practically clean already. And I also wanted to mention that I noticed that this washable resin is actually not as washable as you would think. It doesn't completely dissolve into the water, or at least not all of it. It kind of leaves like a haze behind, and you can see it right there. No matter how much I wash it, there's still going to be like a haze on it. So yeah, I think that if you want to clean everything really good, the things that you can't even touch, like in between crevices, I think you'd still have to use a little bit of alcohol to kind of, you know, get a really good cleaning. And that's what's going on inside this wash tub here, is that it's got a thin layer of hazy resin, especially stuck to the bottom. And I've changed the water multiple times. So yeah, just to note there, the washable resin is not as washable as I would hope, I guess. But still, overall, I'm pretty pleased with how it's going in the post-processing. A lot less fumes and stink. So, and you guys can imagine if this was all alcohol, how much smell that would bring. So let's remove the tub. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna drain the extra resin back into the bottle. We're gonna grab a filter that was included. And the reason we wanna do this is so nothing, you know, from there gets into the fresh resin. So when we go to use it next time, it will be nice and clean. The tub does have pour spouts on 2 of the front sides, so that's nice. But yeah, we're just gonna simply pour it back into the bottle through this filter. So we still have a thin layer there inside. Let's go ahead and close the bottle. And what we're gonna do is go to settings and then clean. And that's gonna clean our tub. So the light turns on, as you guys can see there. So it's hardening up that area. And you can see that it's not all of it, but it's gonna be a lot less of it. So it's been on for a little bit here. I don't know if there's a timer for this thing or not, but it just seems like it keeps going, which is kind of interesting because if it does keep going and going, you could use this to cure your models. All right, so let's stop it and see what we got. So yeah, you guys can see there's a film in there. It's kind of solidified. I do have a plastic spatula, which didn't come with this kit, unfortunately, but yeah, we can see right where the middle or where the screen was, it's hardened there. So I might have hardened it too much. Oh, no. But yeah, you can see it just peels right off. So it gets most of it out. Now I guess you didn't really have to do this step if you didn't want to, but it kind of, you know, gets almost everything out. Let's go ahead and duck into this water. Will it fit in here? Well, I guess maybe not. Okay, so it does fit this way, but not all the way in, so that's okay. We can still wash it pretty easily. So yeah, that's just gonna remove most of our resin there. And I can turn this on so it spins it around the water, but it's much quicker and easier just to kind of wash it yourself in the water. But yeah, it dissolves pretty good, pretty easily. But yeah, you guys can see it's pretty much all gone. Now we just need to wipe it off. But yeah, simple as that. It's clean, and we can go ahead and let it air dry completely before we put it back in. That way, you know, we don't get the LCD there underneath dirty. So yeah, that's basically the cleanup process. Not very hard, and it would pretty much be the same thing with alcohol. And again, it does help to have this wash and cure station, you know, as it provides the area to clean. And if you do store alcohol in this tub here, you can close it with a sealed lid that, you know, preserves it for later. So all right, so these are all the prints that we printed, and overall they all turned out pretty good. But with that said, it wasn't perfect, and a lot of that has to do with the washable resin, which I'm not very used to using, and it does take some time to adjust to understand, you know, how to cure it and process it. But in any case, we've seen the root here. Let's go ahead and check out this lizard looking thing. So this is basically a pretty thin print and really shows out how well resin printers do with all these little holes. You guys can see around his feet we got pretty big elephant foots, and that's, or I guess, extra material all around it, and that's because it's too close to the build plate, which I did adjust somewhat farther down, and it did help a bit. But yeah, overall very nice. If we look at the smooth parts, you guys can see you can't see any layering whatsoever. Let's see if I can get closer maybe. But yeah, no layering at all, or at least my eye can't really see it. So yeah, very nice definition on the print quality, and I think that has something to do with the way we sliced this, which added some image blur and some pixel blur, I think is what it was called. But in any case, that kind of helped it clean up the layer lines. So yeah, take that in consideration. It might be a little smoother and less detailed than it even can be. So but yeah, super good print here on this pretty complicated print with all the holes in it. So yeah, so this one here is pretty exciting. We can see a lot of detail. So with this print, there was supports, and then you guys can see kind of the scars from it, and the base kind of warped a bit. It is hollow inside. That's why there's a hole here for the resin to drain, and I would have to say it did an excellent job here. Now I did break off part of her hair here that goes down when I was cutting it loose from the build plate. I wasn't being too careful, but yeah, other than that, everything else turned out really good. You guys can see the details here are just pretty astonishing. And you know, I mean, this is kind of what you expect from resin printing these days, but yeah, you guys can see the layer lines are practically not seen at all. I mean, certain light you can see it, but yeah, very nice detail and very smooth overall on all the smoother surfaces. So yeah, this is what you can kind of expect from this resin printer, and I have to say I'm pretty impressed. But at the same time, we have come to expect this kind of print quality from the latest resin printers. Another print that's kind of cool here is this tank. Now I printed this thing without supports on purpose because it just gets really messy with supports and you have to hold up the whole tank, so the bottom is kind of screwed up, as you guys can see. So we had some droopage here from just, you know, not having any supports. So we're not going to pay too much attention here, but lots of details. We do have some overhangs here that we have some droopage here and there, but yeah, if we kind of ignore that, that's mostly support issues there. And look at just the detail of this tank and everything on it. It's pretty amazing how well this thing turned out. Everything is nice and smooth and perfect, and again, you can't really see the layer lines. There's certain lighting, they kind of show up here and there, but overall, very smooth surfaces and very nice detail everywhere in the print. So, and again, this tank was hollowed out, that's why there's some holes here, and actually made little holes here also on the sides, trying to drain as much resin as possible, and yeah, it held up pretty well and looks really nice. Here we have a pretty interesting print, which is very fragile, very thin, and this would be very hard to print unless you had a resin printer. So it shows how you can practically print any kind of shape or geometry inside of something, and you can see the spider webs there. And I think this is supposed to be some kind of neuron or something, but yeah, this just shows what resin printers are capable of, and it's pretty awesome. And this Eiffel Tower here really shows the issue I had here with sticking too well, because I was not able to break these feet loose, you know, without damaging them, and all 4 of them got damaged from trying to break it loose. loose. And also what I noticed is this washable resin is more brittle when it dries, and it's harder to work with than the normal resin. But then again, you know, that could be all adjusted with the settings. So yeah, if we look at the Eiffel Tower, you guys can see it looks awesome and there's a lot of detail. And what's impressive is this railing here. There's little tiny supports there, needle-like, and they're all there, which is very interesting. Now we did have a little bit of melting on the inside. There you guys can see maybe. So, you know, not perfect, but very good overall. And if we look at the upper portion here, it's transparent all the way through to the top, and those are tiny little holes there. So yeah, you can see there that it's transparent. Pretty incredible. So yeah, details all there, and the precision is on the next level. So yeah, looking really good for this printer here. And so for the last prints, I printed a couple wheels, and these are for an RC car as extra wheels, and I did have a little bit of trouble with them as they did start to crack, as you guys can see there, and also starting to crack here on the inside. You know, this definitely has to do with the washable resin, and also I did hollow them out so they're really lightweight, and there's holes everywhere you can see, including the sides there, to let the resin out. So I think the main issue with all this cracking and warping and things like that is the resin inside was not able to completely get washed out and escape, and so it caused bloating and cracking, and it started splitting things apart to, you know, escape. So yeah, that's one thing I noticed, is that you got to think about the process in the slicing. So, you know, if you're going to hollow things out, you got to be really careful to make sure that you can wash it all out really good on the inside, and also dial in the settings with exposure times as we talked about earlier. But one thing's for sure, that if you print little solid models that are small, let's say I printed this in solid and maybe much smaller than that, then there's no issue whatsoever. Everything's fine. It's just when the model itself is hollowed out is when you start to have issues. Like this Eiffel Tower here is completely solid, so, you know, there's no issues whatsoever with it as far as, you know, the model warping or splitting apart anywhere. So yeah, that looks like to be for washable resin, and I do like it still a lot because eliminating alcohol from the process really helps with the whole experience, and it's much more easier to deal with. So yeah. All right guys, well, I know this video is a little long, but I did enjoy the experience with this new resin, and the Halot-One here did an excellent job. I feel like it's a really nice printer for beginners. I absolutely love this large screen. It's very nice. The access ports are up front. It is relatively quiet, but a little noisier than normal. Must be because of the extra fans. The carbon filter inside seems to help a lot. The printer itself, it seems to be very durable and built very well. I do wish that the build volume was a little larger, but for a 2K screen, you get really high resolution for this kind of size. And the last thing I wish this printer came with, because it has the unique files to itself, is that it had a Mac OS version for their slicer. But as you guys see with the workaround, it seems to work pretty well still. So overall, I think this is a great printer, and if you're just getting started, this is a great choice here. All right guys, if you are interested in this printer, I'll have some links in the description. Check it out. And if you enjoyed this video, then hit that like button. And if you enjoy videos like this, check out my other reviews that I've done. There's quite a few of them, and there will be more to come, so stay tuned. And if you made it to the end, as always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.